Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're bringing you a first look at Tier 9 Premium Italian Battleship Marco Polo. Now yesterday, or at least earlier this week, we looked at the Tier 9 tech tree battleship Lepanto, and Lepanto is very similar to kind of, the progression of that line. She fits in very nicely. But Marco Polo doesn't fit in so well, right? She is her premium ship, very different from the other Italian premium battleships we've had up to this point, which of course are Tier 5 Giulio Cesare and Tier 8 Roma. Now, we'll talk about, to me, this ship is a spiritual successor to Roma, and I'm going to point that out as we go. So keep an eye out. You're going to see some things that go, oh yeah, that's how my Roma plays. And if you own a Roma, you're going to see a lot of similarities here. But let's start digging under the hood and see what we've got. First things first, survivability. You see there's 69,100 hit points. Pretty solid for a Tier 9 battleship, but not amazing, okay? That is not worst in tier, but it's pretty close, right? You're down there with a lot, the British Lion and Jean Bart. And Jean Bart is an excellent battleship, but, not a lot of health here. 27% torpedo protection is, again, not worst in tier, but it ain't far off, okay? So from a health and torpedo protection perspective, there's not a lot to like about Marco Polo. However, before you get too down on her survivability, let me tell you what there is to like, and there is a lot to like here. So, if you remember Roma's armor scheme, right? Roma has an armor scheme that's got a pretty stout belt with this 70mm kind of, upper belt casemate armor, if you will, that goes all the way to the deck, and she's got this solid deck armor through, like the middle, right? Like Roma's armor scheme is very, very survivable. So is Marco Polo's. So, I think her armor scheme is, I won't say it's amazing, but it's pretty solid, and I think what you're looking at in these other survivability traits are Wargaming's attempt to kind of balance this armor scheme, which is pretty robust, okay? You've still got 32mm extremities here on the deck and the bow, but again, like I noted, you've got a 55mm central deck. This is going to shrug off the overwhelming majority of the high explosive, like 8-inch Heavy Cruiser HE that's going to fall in your deck. It's certainly going to shrug off the overwhelming majority of the light cruiser HE that's going to fall on her deck. This 70mm upper casemate works is going to give you the ability to bounce some things. Although again, you'll take full pens through here from heavy cruisers and battleships, so you got to guard this a little bit. 320mm of belt armor, not too shabby. But let's dig under the extremities. Dig deep, my friends. Dig deep, and let me show you. Let me show you Marco Polo's Citadel. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. It's like a German battleship almost. You almost can't see the damn thing, okay? For starters, let me put her torpedo belt back up a little bit here. She's got, again, I got to show these. Yeah, okay? So she's got a bit of this spaced kind of armor configuration, right? You do have some large gaps down here, and then up top, you've got a little bit, actually this is not so spaced, but there is a gap in here. Like you've got this 320mm belt, you've got this turtle back. Let me see if I can get show you that. Got to find the plate there, right there. It's a 25mm turtleback right there, okay? And then you see it there again, 25mm. And look at the angle on that thing, right? Like this is a ship that if you can get it to brawling range, I won't say it's impossible to Citadel, because I'm not sure anything is truly impossible to Citadel, but Citadeling this thing is going to be incredibly difficult. This Citadel sits low in the water, and at point-blank range, when you can actually get full broadside pens on this thing, this armor scheme, this crazy slope, I'm afraid, is going to auto-bounce a lot of things. So yeah, like, this is a ship that might actually reward a little bit of brawling, which is kind of interesting. So again, similar to Roma, she's got a very robust armor scheme, but a slightly reduced health pool to kind of make up for it. Let's talk about maneuverability and concealment. You see there, 32 knots, top speed. Again, not best in tier. That still falls to the Americans, Iowa and Missouri, of course. However, 32 knots, nothing to sneeze about at Tier 9. There's a lot of battleships in this tier that top out 28, 29.5 knots. If you're that poor bastard driving to Minnesota, you're looking at 23, right? So this ship has got a decent amount of speed, more than capable of keeping up with most of the heavy cruisers that she's going to run across. 860-meter turning circle and 16.7 rudder shift. Nothing to write home here. Nothing to write home about here. I mean, handling-wise, if you wanted to look for an analogy of a ship that you've possibly driven, Tier 9-wise, you're looking at maybe like a Georgia, which is like an 890 turning circle and a 16.5-second rudder shift. Probably a different overall length on the Georgia, but I mean, in terms of like that's like an analog for handling. And Georgia's speed is somewhat similar as well, right? 33 base, 32 base. So yeah, handling wise, that's kind of where you're at. Although I think she's probably, this ship looks like she has more beam than a Georgia does. Concealment-wise, this is where things start to get really good. 15.3 kilometer base concealment. You can see here I've turned her camouflage off. This is a premium ship. She does come with premium permanent camouflage. I have it disabled to show you the base value here, 15.3. That is not best in tier, but it is damn close. Best in tier for tier 9 is still the Brits. That's tier 9's Tech Tree Lion by 14.8. So Lion's got you by about a half kilometer. But by the time you rig this ship fully for stealth, she comes in at a 12 even detection radius. For a tier 9 battleship, that is amazing. You are absolutely going to surprise people with these guns. And again, I look at this spiritual successor to Roma. Same way here. Roma is a bit of a stealthy battleship for the tier, right? If you play a Roma in a game without a carrier and you can work a flank or duck in and out of detection, she can be a real troll because people will lose sight of her. They'll forget about her, especially if you manage to push the destroyers back or get them all dead. Oh, you can do mean things with Roma, right? Marco Polo headed in the same direction. Very, very stealthy little battleship here. Main battery, that's what we're here for, right? Main battery guns, right? It's a battleship. Let's talk about the big guns. So, what makes Marco Polo stand out? Well, Lepanto, you remember over in the tech tree, has 3 quadruple barrel turrets of the same 381mm guns that are mounted on every Italian battleship, basically from, like, I think tier 7 to the top of the tree. Marco Polo is different. These are 406mm guns. That's right, kids. Marco Polo, as of right now, is the only Italian battleship to mount 16-inch guns at any tier. It's kind of interesting. You see there, these are 406 millimeters, 50 caliber guns, okay? Shell velocity, 836 meters per second. So shell performance-wise, these I think are going to be a little slower than Roma's. I have to go check, but I think Roma's are I feel like Roma's guns are a little faster on the velocity. However, the Italian, I've been looking at the penetration values on the charts, right? You go to WOWSFT.com. They have an artillery chart. You can see the penetration curves of these guns over distance. The penetration on these AP shells is insane. Absolutely insane over range. It makes the Russian guns at this tier look like pop toys. They're just ridiculous. So again, you talk about similarities to Roma. You know how with Roma's guns, when you fire the AP, you find you're constantly overpenning things. I think you're going to have the same problem with Marco Polo, right? So to make up for that, what does Marco Polo have? She is now the first Italian premium battleship to offer SAP instead of high explosive shells. And you see there, these are now the first 16-inch SAP shells in the game, 15,750 base damage. That means a full penetration out of one of these shells is going to slap somebody around for over 5,000 points. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of heavy cruisers in this matchmaking bracket that do not want to deal with those shells. So we'll have to see how this thing comes out in testing. I'm legit curious to fire these guns. 33-second reload time is kind of the balancing act. And then you see there, she retains that Italian traverse speed, 30 seconds on the turret traverse. Very, very, very sexy. Now, 19-kilometer range, right, is a little more than Roma. I think Roma's like 18 and change. And it is, let me check here, it is better than Lepanto by almost a full kilometer. Lepanto tops out at 18.1, and you see here Marco Polo going all the way out to 19. So, again, 19 kilometers of range is, again, pretty noteworthy for the tier. It is short, right? But however, there are a number of other battleships in this tier bracket that are in like the right at even 20. The Soviets are at like 19 and change, a little more than 19. The Germans are a little more than 20, right? Alsace is like right over 20. So you are short range, but you have the stealth, as we noted, that it's more playable, right? There's some Italian battleships that we've looked at that they marry crappy range with crappy stealth. And that's where I scratch my head and go, what are you doing? Here, we're marrying substandard range with exceptional stealth. Okay, now we can start having a conversation about things this ship can do and how it can perform. So yeah, on paper, I like the look of these guns. I'm really, really curious to try them out. Secondary battery, I mean, yeah, you're used to these by now. We've moved up to the double barrel, not these little 90mm guns. These, of course, make up her secondary battery with a 5-kilometer range. They're also her dual purpose guns for her for her anti-aircraft armament. And like we were mocking the Tier 10 Italian battleship Cristoforo Colombo at one point, and I haven't, and I think Lepanto as well has these. You have these guns now have more range on the surface than they do when they fire at aerial targets. Why? Because reasons. And then you've Italians love these 6-inch turrets. Like it's all these Italian battleships seem to have these little triple-barreled 6-inch turrets. So you've got basically 1 fore, 1 aft on each side of the ship. And again, you've got a crappy range there, 5 kilometers. So I mean, to me, this is not a ship you want to brawl with. But if you find yourself in a brawl, your armor scheme, and if you were willing to invest a little bit in your secondary battery, might actually be beneficial. Trust me, that's something that when I start to play the ship, I will derp around with and try, just because I'm curious. AA defense. I mean, it's an Italian battleship, guys. There's not anything to get really excited about here. You are, of course, stuck with the gimped range. The Italian anti-aircraft fire here tops out at 4.6 kilometers. Remember, more range on the surface than in the air because reasons. However, you put up a lot of flak, right? This ship and Lepanto and Christopher Colombo all put up a tremendous amount of flak. Now, I think the reason for that is because you see there, you have an incredibly narrow window to which you can put flak up in, right? Marco Polo will see Tier 10 carriers as well as Tier 8 ones. The Tier 8 ones, by the virtue of the fact that they'll probably have slower aircraft, are going to be a little more susceptible to these flak bursts. The Tier 10 ones, yeah, I mean, good luck, right? You're putting up a lot of flak, but you have an incredibly narrow window to be accurate with that flak before a fast plane, let's say German planes, let's say an MVR, a von Richthofen, is going to have his planes inside your flak bubble, and it's really not going to matter all that much. Her continuous damage, outer ring, pretty solid. Middle ring, well below average. We saw in Lepanto's middle ring is actually pretty good. Here, for whatever reason, there just aren't enough of these 37mm Beretta guns to make a substantial contribution to her middle ring. So as a result, Marco Polo's AA is overall below average. It is nothing to write home about, right? I think, again, I come back to, I feel like that's probably their kind of way of balancing the ship a little bit, just because, you know, she's so stealthy. When she is spotted by planes, they don't want her to just swat them out of the sky instantly. Again, I liken her to Roma this way. Roma functions in very much the same manner. Let's have a check on consumables and such. Nothing fancy here, right? You have your standard damage control party, you have a standard battleship heal, and you do have aircraft facilities you can choose between spotting aircraft, standard spotter, and a standard catapult fighter. You see there are 3 charges, 3 planes a pop. So, you know, nothing fancy here. And then, of course, you get your all the access to, finally, it's Tier 9 ships, so you have access to all this stuff here, including, of course, main battery mod 3, which is the really good one for the ship. You get more shells downrange out of those SAP guns, a little, you know, as quick as you can. So yeah, this ship really, really intrigues me. There's a lot to like here. I keep hitting on this. If you like Roma, if you like Roma's playstyle, to me, there is a lot to like about Marco Polo. I'm really curious to put this ship through its paces when I get the opportunity. We'll have to see if she survives testing this way. For me, looking at it right now, I hope she does. I like her just the way she is on paper. Hopefully, she tests out well, and they don't have to change a whole lot. Anyway, guys, there's our first look at Tier 9's Marco Polo. Hope you enjoyed that. Be safe, wash your hands, and I'll catch you next time.